Hi, Sandra. Hi, Kathleen.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I also want to thank Susan Beck for her help. We have two wonderful poets with us today. Sandra Giedeman will read first, and then Kathleen Tyler. Sandra Giedeman grew up in the Midwest. She lives in San Clemente, California. She's past president of the Orange County chapter of PEN and spent most of her working career as a magazine editor. Sandra writes poetry and short fiction. She won the Mudfish Poetry Prize awarded by Charles Simic and is a Pushcart Prize nominee. Her work has appeared in literary journals and anthologies, including Poetry, Critic, the Cortland Review, Bellevue Literary Review, School of Medicine, that's, in parentheses, NYU School of Medicine, the Bellevue Literary Review, Paris/Atlantic, and others. Her poetry collection, In This Hour, was published by Green Terra Press, Los Angeles. She studied poetry in Holly Prado's Los Angeles workshop for several years. Sandra Giedeman writes precisely, poignantly, and eloquent about the California landscape, beauty, loss, family, her aunt in the Ozarks, her father fighting the Nazis in, quote, a French field where lilacs bloomed, end of quote. She writes of steel mills and blacktop roads in an ever-changing America. In an elegiac poem, she wrote of learning that, quote, a red hibiscus possesses a bony scent drier than the Mojave, end of quote. A superb craftswoman, here's Sandra Giedeman.
Thank you, Harry. I'm really happy to be here today and share some poetry. I do like to write about the Midwest and my family, so I'm going to start with one called 4th of July, 1950. I'm 6, holding a burnt sparkler. My sister makes crazy 8s until hers dies too. Wilson Park, weeping willows, time to go home. Smell of gunpowder lingering from the fireworks. It is dark walking through the trees. Father says the night landscape reminds him of France, a World War II battle when he was an infantry foot soldier. 2 of my brothers are not yet born and now long dead. That night stuck like no others. Was it the shadowy trees, the smell of black powder that triggered Father's memories? I remember the now spent wand of ashes, delicate as smoke, toppling into nothing. The crunch of leaves underfoot, the blue chlorine smell of the night swimming pool, that Midwest summer of heat waves and polio, cherry bombs and firecrackers. And then for my second poem here, I'm going to write about California. I love California. It's been such a joy to live here for so many decades. Visit to a California monastery. The wild artichokes are dry, with whiskers and faces bent like ancient ancestors of sunflowers. Olive trees, flower-tipped cacti, rusty barbed wire fence. I hear the birds as clearly as I once did in the Ozarks. The monk is old, with blue eyes unseemingly young. No clouds today, just open sky, oak savannas, silence broken by the thunder of an F-18 training jet from Miramar. If I sit long enough, I think the ache will leave my bones. My shoulders will unlock, my jaw unclench. There's the dull tap of a woodpecker working one of the sycamores, the wild, rude call of a jay. A row of $1 million houses sit atop a ridgeline behind a solitary century plant. Its flowers turn to brown. The sun rolls in waves on my back, and the day is full of space. I think how the monk's eyes are young, but this canyon is old. Once owned by coyotes, hawks, mountain lions, unseen rattlesnakes, recluses among the rocks and stage on this brilliant day. And next, I'm going to go with Ensenada Bufadora. I wanted to buy the papier-mâché devil in a red chair that day, remember? Hand-painted pink skin and rouged cheeks, tiny horns poking through shiny black hair. I liked that. Satan in an armchair, and the mud fetish doll with the crown of thorns and tiny nails encircling the head. You chose a skeleton in a sombrero at a stand festooned with blue piñatas near the bufadora, handed it to me. We saw dolphins and drank Coronas, talked about nothing on this stray weekend, probably our last together. We watched a rat dart across the patio at a beach restaurant with fruit of a color too brilliant to eat. The place thick with bougainvillea, dripping purple against stucco where bats buzzed in flurries of black, dodging the falling night. And on to, there's one. This is about my dad who loved cars. Two-tone Ford Victoria. Father had a knack, a special gift for buying cars that immediately became obsolete. The shiny green Hudson Hornet, the Henry J, the black Packard that looked like a mob car, the Mercury, big heavy things with windows like gun turrets, a tank, an upside-down bathtub. He loved his cars, and when he was young, he jazzed them up with special mud flaps. The last one I remember was the red Cadillac, a 59, with jutting tail fins that resembled weapons mounted on the rear. He always bought what he called Detroit Iron. Wasn't thrilled with my first car, an MG 1600. Would have preferred for me to buy a two-tone green and white Ford Victoria with chrome strips running along the side. He loved his cars as much as he loved Johnny Cash and Hank Williams. I thought that music maudlin, but years later when country music came into vogue, I surprised myself when I knew all the lyrics to Orange Blossom Special and Your Cheatin' Heart. I spent some time in the Ozarks as a child on my aunt's farm. It was a really memorable place. Seemed like truly another century. Wilfred, my uncle was proud of his blue tick hounds, his 60 acres of hills, hollows, creeks filled with copperheads and cottonmouths, nights utterly still except when a smell or sound rifled the hounds from their sleep to bay like old mourners. He read aloud Sunday mornings from the book of Job in a nasal voice about hating the night and waiting for day, only to find in the day that one wished for night, about how we are here for a flicker of time, then reflected in no one's eye. My aunt had the custom of Ozark people of keeping framed photographs of dead relatives in their coffins. When my uncle died, she got rid of his hounds, his Jew's harp, said she was through with men and their ways, but she kept his death photo displayed on a lace doily in her living room. Okay, number 6. Here we go. Spring at the Coronado Hotel. We watched the gardener arc a hose, carelessly washing away the work of mud sparrows, hornets, and wasps, nests studded with white eggs in the intricate catacombs they constructed under the eaves of the hotel. A single red flower sways near our table. My mother planted a crooked row of tulips that color from the corner of our house to the street when we all still spoke to one another. When we thought death happened to old people, not to our brother, that beautiful boy with the strawberry blonde hair and deep voice who cried easily, delicate collarbones, alabaster freckled skin. My husband and I eat a bright salad under an umbrella. A hummingbird is close. I hear the whir of his wings as he dives, then hovers over my head. Route 66, String of pearl night cities, white headlights, ruby taillights, deserted roadside rests, main streets giving way to rock upheavals, buttes, white bones visible in black hills, dark towns called Jerome, tumbleweeds, high wind, a desert called Mojave, miles from prairies and home. The two of us youngsters in midnight towns glowing along Route 66, the Mother Road they called it, King of the Road, the only song we hear on the Plymouth scratchy radio, caught in the slipstreams of time, driving through forgotten places, wing beats shadowing our past, weight of time circling, tightening, until we feel ourselves swept along in downslope winds. All the years, miles, distances we traveled together. That time was weightless. Our wings, those of a map, opened and folded again and again, left behind on a table somewhere in Oklahoma. Okay. Here's one. Eyes. We see gray vistas, bleeding heart of pomegranate, lightning bolts on a lake. Our eyes focusing, remembering, leaving no record. A solitary camera, a consciousness that dies. I went to gaze through my great-grandmother's eyes to see what she saw on her last trip out of Scotland, to be a voyeur in a dingy secondhand shop, a basket of forgotten photos, a scruffy sheath of black and whites. Greeted for frozen memories, I fanned the scallop-edged pictures. A man with a cane and a monocle, a woman leaning on the fender of a roadster. Memories soaked like rum in a sponge cake. 3 Dust Bowl Okies, Rincon Camp 1932 penciled on the back. One of them holds a long-forgotten infant, a straw-hatted man sitting on a dune, coal eyes, wet eyes, weary seeing everything eyes, skin stretched over bones, turning to folds, then light, pure light from the eyes staring out. I want to know the last thing my mother saw. Okay. Still more time?
Yes, it's 17 after, so you have about 10 more minutes.
Okay. Desert Angel. I no longer believe in the angel with flimsy wings who loitered, then finally flew away from a stale motel at the edge of 29 Palms, up to the sky over Joshua Tree, leaving my brother to night sweats, mother nightmares, and 13 rounds from a semi-automatic in the overeager hands of Officer Christian. Angel with contrived face made of dry winds that lost my brother's voice across crackling telephone wires, interstates, gas stations, army bases, midnight freight trains moving through the Mojave. You could never see him, even when your angel sat in front of you on the San Diego bus, you didn't recognize him. You, too preoccupied with your bled-out bomb of a heart. Your angel got off the stop before you and pressed his face against your window. But mistaking him for a panhandler and anxious to move on, you brushed him away. Ode to Piped-In Music. I'm on hold to have a question answered. I've listened to 3 cyber robot messages and haven't connected with a human. Some Donna Summer comes on. Good, I can reminisce about the 70s. Oh, the dentist chair? I'm Novocaine numbed, and over the hum of the drill, Feelings, one of the all-time drippiest songs, plays. And yet, drawn out feelings, oh, 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 feelings, seems appropriate when I can't feel. Then there's the elevator at Saks, the music all the way up to the 3rd floor is The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go, played by 101 strings. I look on it philosophically. Everything gets rolled into the mainstream eventually. The best piped-in music, really, by far, is the Union 76 station in San Juan Capistrano, where the owner pipes Mozart and Brahms out to the pumps. I feel noble as I fill up with regular every week. Last time there was a bit of a problem when the kid at the next pump played rap so loud on his sound system that his Chevy appeared to bounce along with the bass. The Pizza Kitchen has it all planned out. They blast some indefinable music genre, loud and tinny, wonderful way for the management to get a turnover at the tables. I see us all carried along on waves of sound, chosen by people we don't know and will never see. My husband made his selection for his funeral. He wants Van Morrison's Real, Real Gone played. I haven't chosen my music yet. Maybe I'll be a Maverick and have silence. Okay. Baja Beach. A steady slosh of waves render the ocean's secrets. A dead bird rocked by the waves in a last lullaby. Bits of shells, detritus drifting, riding high tide. The Pacific whispers throwing ropes of seaweed, entrails of the newly dead onto the sand. Buzzing flies hover. A lone seagull picks among slippery vines, darts and retreats. This Mexican beach is a dark dream where midnight fireworks flare. Explosions are muffled, colors dimmed by distance. Night holds my hand, running with wounded feet toward the last vapors of the moon, bleached of color, stealing its light from the sun. I watch the pale lizard of morning slither across the horizon. I close my eyes and an intricate amoeba floats into view, followed by a small creature that lazily cartwheels across my field of vision. On reading Lorca, to drown in green, an abrupt end, some would say, but to me it would be a bath in lichen, mossy and soft, rolling in gray-green waves of eucalyptus leaves. I would cover myself in palm fronds, cool undersides against my bare legs, olive-colored pools floating over loamy soil, seafoam waves lapping at my sand-covered feet, washing away khaki dust, poison green, hemlock green, shady glens, arbors, vines curling and twisting up cliffs of shade, jade, and malachite. I'd wrap myself in the green blanket of my body, gaze through algae eyes, Zampola music carried on wind, high above mountains, rising from the ocean, reaching to stab the swirling emerald sky. Peacock Alley. On a back street in St. Louis near the banks of the Mississippi River, the Admiral riverboat paddle wheeler cruised the muddy waters on summer nights. Peacock Alley in Gaslight Square. The laughing boy and I loved jazz and being the only kids at the hidden club, where we listened to Miles Davis play All of You and learned something about music, about grace and heartbreak. I sat with the laughing boy, drank rum and coke. He was one of those who peak early, collar turned up, hair slicked. He wore pegged pants and a faded jacket, smoked camels and squinted through clouds of smoke. Charm later turned to a pot belly, I heard, but God, that night, that smile, all gums and eager. One more?
Yes.
Let's sip water here. Donald, Laurel Canyon, 1997. He showed me his perfume collection. This one is for you, he said, handing me a blown glass bottle filled with the French perfume of tuberose and gardenia. He sprayed me with the patchouli scent, and it's so strong it stayed with me all day. I like this one, he said. Reminds me of incest at Sunday Mass. I got another chance at life, and I won't blow it this time. The drugs are working. his Mississippi drawl, his delicate head, flesh drawn tight. "You look better this week," I said. His hands fluttered, weighed down by the diamond ring he called Baby Liz. His bedroom was fit for a young prince. Books tumbled about in the living room where he taught poetry, schooling us in the fine points of Plath, Eliot, Sestinas, Villanelles. I saw him one last time before he died at 38. He wore a black silk kimono robe open to the waist, his hair slicked back, debonair as Valentino. Late summer heat wafted through windows, brushed with late summer roses and peonies.
Thank you, Sandra. I love your poetry, and thank you for taking us across America from the Midwest to St. Louis to Baja to the Coronado Hotel. And your poems are lyrical, and they're just poignant and full of love for your family, and they're so clear-eyed. And you also have such a great sense not only of the personal, but of the landscape. And I really appreciate that. I always love to keep learning and paying attention to what people have seen and experienced in America. I have a couple of questions for you. We have a few minutes before Kathleen comes on. When did you write your first poem?
I wrote my first poem because actually I used to write short fiction. That was what I did. And many years ago, I signed up for a workshop with Kate Braverman. Do you remember her? Yeah. And she opened up the world to me. There was just something about her. I went, I think maybe I can try this and I can do this. And I loved her poetry. She was such a dynamic character. Her workshops were. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to study with Holly, who was one of the most inspirational women ever. You just felt totally supported. And she just opened up another whole world to me. Yeah.
She's helped a lot of us. She's helped all of us in one way or the other.
And you don't forget her.
Pardon?
You don't forget her,
no.
Ever. Yeah.
And she always did her own work, too. She wrote every day, and she didn't spend her time talking bad about other writers. She did her own work, and she didn't gossip. She knew that she had to fulfill her gift, which she did, and she loved working with the people who worked with her. Another question is, what is it? I know you just said how you got into poetry in Kate's class, but what is it about poetry that attracts you?
I feel like it lets me say things that are, that are in there and they just come out. It's a magical feeling. It really is. To see something beautiful and then try to say what that was or how that felt or the memories. It's wonderful. It's like music. I love music too. So.
Well, I think the best poetry really I don't know what the word would be, but it tries to be like music, the great pieces we can read over and over again with almost music behind them or within them, and also the mystery that's within the great poetry. Who are a couple of the poets? You mentioned Kate and Holly. Who are a couple of the poets that have influenced you?
I love Eliot. I love Sylvia Plath. I love James Wright. There are so many. It's really hard to choose.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to hear your poetry, and it's always a pleasure to see you. And our next poet is Kathleen Tyler. Kathleen Tyler lives in North Carolina. Kathleen Tyler's collection of short stories was selected by Yellow Flag Press for their Cypress and Pine series. Tyler is the author of 3 collections of poetry, Open the Window and Drown, My Florida, and The Secret Box. She earned a BA from UCLA and an MA from Loyola Marymount University, both in English literature. Her short stories and poetry have appeared in numerous journals. A 5th-generation Floridian, Taylor lived for many years in Los Angeles, and as I just stated, she now calls North Carolina home. Kathleen Tyler's poems are lean, concise, and bountiful. In her poem entitled Poem with No Birds, we see elegiac, startling, unexpected turns. Quote, and we turn to earth bones no longer hollow, end of quote. She has a way of entering characters' lives, sometimes dark characters, and giving us their hearts in a clear-eyed, fearless, compassionate way. Her poems are transformative and can be described by a line in her own poem, Once the Beloved, quote, "Oh, holy amongst holies, heart turned on a wheel," end of quote. A splendid poet. Here's Kathleen Tyler.
Hey, Harry. It's so nice to see your face.
You too.
Yeah, I live in Wilmington now. It's quite a change, but we like it. And I want to thank you for having me, and thank Jennifer and Creative Chaos. What a great name. This is the first Zoom reading I've ever done, though I have certainly been on Zoom meetings. And usually when I read, it's, because a book just came out. But now it's just in general. So I feel like, great, I can kind of do a retrospective. I can read a couple of poems starting from way back. So I'll do that from this. I'll start with The Secret Box. And the first poem is kind of, actually, though I think they all are kind of an Ars Poetica. And it is, it's for, I'm going to mispronounce this. And if I do, don't tell me right now. Someone did that once and I'm like, oh my God, I can't read another word. But if there are any Russian speaking people in the audience, I do apologize, but it is for Marina Tsetaeva. And that's pretty much the title of it too. Well, Ashtarasi. Okay. The word for poet is exile. On the mountain, I knew this. Nothing can bring me close to others. How they walk in groups and chatter. I am not even there, though I see the same horizon lanced by mountains, the same clouds flattened by the sky's immensity. At the cliff's edge, I pick a wildflower, so like the puffed head of a dandelion, but more silver and intense, vibrating in preparation for flight. At home, I looked it up in a weed book, annual sow thistle, seeds flat and ribbed, wind-borne by clusters of fine hairs. So I thought of you, Marina, and how words cannot describe the rapturous vision induced by seeds shaken loose, rising and spiraling until swept away by air, all of the material world luminous. Now everything opens, even as I bathe. The chandelier, yes, in the bathroom, throws off a dazzling circle of light, its circumference splintered by shadow, rays shooting from its bald center like an enormous hallucinatory dandelion on my ceiling. Marina, tell me, how do we survive this other world, whose surfaces mock us, whose similitudes multiply beyond all comprehension, in which we must live? I'll read another one from this book, a little bit of a different kind of thing, but okay. Runaway. Once upon a time, a woman was kind to me. She gave me bread, water. What? I don't remember now. I walked through a field of waist-high grass. Crows followed, watching. I saw their gold-rimmed eyes, black disc at the center. You wouldn't believe that either. We were driving past a gas station when I told you. Mother, I said. Heliotrope, tuberoses ringed the sign edging the highway. Cigarettes, beer, ammunition. Its metal panels snapped. Stop here. A man comes to me at night. His hands have the texture of canvas bags stuffed with birdseed. They are rough, Mother. I called to you. My body was a dark wood, a sugar cottage. Crumbs circled it. Bright gold cages lined the field. Sparrows flew into them. A fence pushed grass back. A sudden gate. I walked to it, but did not go through. Okay, grab these books. I want to read a couple poems from my second book called My Florida. And it's kind of very loosely based. You know, Walker Evans went down to Florida. He was sent down to Florida to take pictures, and they were supposed to be meant to draw tourists in. But if you saw these photographs, you would never go near the place. And it is a strange place. It can be. So I wanted to say, well, that's the Florida he creates in his photographs, and I'll just do one of my own. And I don't know if you can see this when I say it's a strange place. It's, yeah. So anyway, some of the poems are pretty much based on photographs in here. And this one is called Car Advertising Alligator Farm. Clamped to the front of a 1936 Chrysler sedan, an embalmed alligator, upright, waxy belly exposed, back legs spread and shackled, tail sawed off, the stump curled into a metal brace, its glass eyes, amber, gold, fixed in the sockets so they don't roll, but stare past the car's bulging lights at maracas strapped to each claw. Its jaws are hinged open as though it is singing. Long after this car became obsolete, my brother and I carried home a pail of baby alligators from a roadside stand. We tipped it, chased gators across sand spurs, tawny and dry Bermuda grass of that distant summer yard. I trapped one against a chain link fence, tiny jaws snapping, chased it over and over until Daddy drove to the swamp and made us set them loose among cypress stumps and purple hyacinths, because just that day he heard on the radio about a boy falling into an alligator pit at the Paradise Souvenir Shop and Alligator Farm. A waitress said the boy floated down, hands unfolding slowly, revealing something tender and secret in his palms. The boy eager, expectant in his white linen sailor suit, as if the meeting with the gator was inevitable, something he had always planned to do on a cloudless summer morning, as if he knew one day he would be in a poem about alligators. This strangeness he sacrificed himself to, this appalling beauty. Got some cars going on there too. Okay. Florida also, you know, if you don't know this, was the winter quarters for the Ringling Brothers Circus. And, you know, they have a big museum there. And of course, I hear Ringling Brothers is no more, which is probably a good thing. But it's quite something to go see that circus museum. But poem mired in winter quarters. What begins as a music box of carved rosewood, its lid drags open like a hinged comb, snagging air. Once the circus train chanced past, I woke from my nap hungry for all that exists. The bone stalks of amaryllis, the woman standing on one finger, feet splayed like petals, such dazzling pinkness at the center. It was the last wagon that beckoned, the way I could only see delirium going. She leaned from the balcony, hair trailing. From that swift glance, Gold spun back to straw I begged to lie in, the smell of dung everywhere. How I tried to mimic her weightlessness. The circus, a tired trope, I know, but still the tense blue shimmer as one longing streams into another. Oh, muse, I cried, take everything. I am tapping out some other story that wheezes and huffs. See how it gallops alongside the wagon, trying to shake loose. Its colors brilliant before they fall. That I could speak was what I asked for. A gilded pony, clop, clop, clop. Oh. And then I have one more from this collection. Oh yeah, I just got to do this. You'll have to forgive me. There is the picture that inspired it. And it is called In the Kingdom of My Sin. A lion stares, one-eyed, from a torn Ringling Brothers poster. The monstrous curved teeth of its upper jaw ripped away. What little fever ate through the paper, swelling and swelling my brain. I put my eyeball to its eyeball, but I backed down first. The one I bore and the one I bore her with, daughter, husband, threw their longing at me like raw meat through the bars of a cage. I could not help but devour it. When I was finally engorged, they emptied my body. The number 7 etched in bold, old-fashioned script along the lion's mane. The 8th sin, the most deadly, not even counted. They asked for the keys to the U-Haul, and I gave them. What kind eats most in this animal world? The kind whose crimes are greatest or whose songs are sweetest. They backed out of the driveway, trunks and knapsacks strapped to the roof. The beast roared its warning. Death cures us of our terror of death. What cure is there for the terror of love? Okay. Let me just. So I will come here to my last poetry book. It's called Open the Window and Drown. And I don't know, I have this ekphrastic thing going that I love, I guess. It was a long time ago, I walked into LACMA, and I don't know what I was even doing there now, what I was looking for, but I happened to turn a corner. And I ran into this like painting. It was of Kandinsky's Composition 6 called The Deluge. And it was so incredible. I was just absorbed by it for God knows how long. So anyway, I wrote a lot of poems kind of around that. I mean, I did see a lot more, you know, I know a lot more of his painting, but interestingly enough, the first ones are, there's a long section of poems taken from another painting, the entry of the animals onto Noah's Ark, which of course is also another deluge. So I'll read a couple from that section. And this one, there's an epigraph on this one. Thus it always begins. Just before the great calamity, the patriarch ordered us to enter, so we entered. The order to leave our slaughterhouses, our bread, the old Anatolian plain where the sun plays its last game, causes us to arrive in pairs. The plague of ourselves becoming, as seeds might become trees, when earth sheds its girdle of water, earth that goes on and on. A bird of paradise circles, its beak a mark that questions the future, its red wings, rain struck, we go where we are told to go. There is no other way. Where do all the dead go? The garden's most dangerous tree unfurls its dainty fingertips just above Earth's watermark. Clouds sink their heads towards my first bird, a wren or thrush stuffed into a basket, dying. Its curious, dull eyes follow the eyedropper as the eyes of the three peasants watch him load the boat. Lions, leopards, a bull and its mate, two female albatrosses, queers that slip in. And it is my job to face always the wind, the flat bay, my heart that nothing gets past. He of course is the patriarch, I guess, Noah. He releases the raven. I fall into a sky of rainless blue, wind tattering my memory as faces of the dead slip beneath wave after wave. Who will put forth a hand? One of God's henchmen slips me his phone number, and it's always last call. But I missed this boat long ago, worm-addled gopher wood I thought would be home. His sons and their many wives caterwauling all night. I was the odd one out, though I love the curvature of beginnings, and every creature furred and scaled drinks from my heart. I want to have everything, even the wind eats at my mouth as I fall, and his only mercy is letting me drown. Okay, this one actually, hey, it's my like California poem. There's several of them in here, but I was hiking somewhere when I saw this water tank and just, you know, how these things come to you. And it's called Borderland. Evening, the sun mere ornament pinned to withering pink. In the distance, the port rocking, though I am no longer young, even when I was young. I thought I'd disentangle circling hawks from the Hollywood sign. It's H toppled. Radio towers poke holes in the sky. The water tanks rusty tagging, il ne se passe rien. As if the scrawler traveled thousands of miles with only an astrolabe to end here, the boredom of pools. Splash of children rippling like light from stars long dead. Bougainvillea scrapes the ruins of red-tiled mansions. Though once I remembered the soft of pine tufts against sap-crusted bark, a line of fire ants flagging me down, a golden-eyed dog, husband in baggy corduroys, everywhere he steps a bruise. Okay, and all right, this one is actually, the title of the poem is also a title of one of Kandinsky's paintings. A Small Dream in Red, 1925. My body a boat, little son, that bears us across constellations of hungry birds, their song a dropped compass. Your first birthday in the world unfurling. The other gift I must give you, a red box, mortal chinoiserie. Its lacquer ground away. On shore, cherry trees in the orchards blooming, tiny couches of dew. Where will we rest when the yellow, red, and blue diagonals that pin us to the painting topple? When is a mountain not a mountain? Rather, a calligraphic stroke. The scribe's heart stuttering to a stop in snow. What is snow? Another end. My colophon, an unhinged river, my body, a sweep of ink, gone. Okay. And I have a poem I want to read. I too was in Holly's workshop for many years, and every year at the beginning of the year, she would have a ceremony, and we would write something on a piece of paper that we wanted to release or let go into the world, or, you know, we're glad to be done with, or we look forward to, whatever. And then one by one, we'll put it in a bowl and burn it. And it was really a marvelous thing. And I wrote this poem quite a bit back about that. It's called Ceremony It. I want to burn my poem last. I want its ashes to lie on other ashes. I roll it tight. I want some pieces of it left in defiance of everything I have ever wished for or against. The most minute particles excavating the bottom of the bowl, charred arms outstretched. I envy the possessor of the green flame, Joan of Arc's hair shimmering, the acid afterglow of pure vision that flares against the dullest background, an old habit, the way the dead light certain causeways of phosphorescence I have come to drink from. The corpulent body of Pliny the Elder sizzling on the beach, the world's worst dying as yet unknown. The younger one described the eruption of Vesuvius as a giant tree, night fuming in its branches. Only now night is an excess and a lack. Another ancient philosopher claimed all things are in exchange for fire. Sometimes I can see Jupiter, Mercury, Mars singed red, my head bent back, the archer's fiery bow, his arrow blazing. I actually wanted to read, I have one of the poems you mentioned. Once the Beloved. And, you know, it's dedicated to my sister. And it has an epigraph to by Jack Gilbert, 2 girls barefoot, never coming back. Once the Beloved. How much worse to be haunted by the tender one than by those who drink your glass of night water and complain at the foot of the bed. The tender one glides up beside you, driving her treasure, a pony car, black, 64 Corvair coupe, back wings sloped like skate wings lolling in surf. You amble bareback in the blur of early morning, past an empty baseball field, the woods beyond bloated with sun. Horn blazing, your sister calls, her voice summer struck, dizzy with blue. Your mare, sudden glory, startles, a fence warped with honeysuckle, halting your fall. The tender one slips you the keys to her car, little ball of attar of roses burning on the dashboard. With her hand, she rolls your hand over the shift, a blessing your clumsiness breaks, bucking the Corvair, tires spuming crushed oyster shells. Only the double wishbone suspension saves you from flipping. The tender one never cries out. Oh, phantom car, your sister's hair blown back, radio shrilling. Oh, holy amongst holies, heart turned on a wheel.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Your poetry, it just has so much lyricism and they're precise and vibrant. And I just wanted to say a couple things about your poetry. At the beginning, you quote, "The word for poet is exile. All the material world is luminous." And you've shown us that through your poetry. Your poetry is very particular, and you just have a way of seeing into things and bringing them to life. And then at the end, in one of your poems, you say, "My heart, that nothing gets past." And that's also true. And I love the way you're inspired by images, the photographs, paintings by Kandinsky. And the first poem that you said, I never know how to pronounce the woman's name either, Marina Zatevia, and she was one of the top 4 lyric poets in Russia in the early 20th century, along with Mandelstam, Pasternak before he went to prose, and also Anna Akhmatova.
Right.
And in Kandinsky, I always think that sometimes modern art, abstract art, goes back to him, because I heard a story where one of his paintings, he painted and he put it on the floor and let it dry, and then he went out for a walk and he looked at it and he realized you could paint that painting any way and it still works. So you really have a deep sense of the image, and the tenderness too for your sister was just so deeply moving. I would like to ask you a couple of questions also. When did you write your first poem?
I've been writing poetry just forever. As a kid, I was writing it. And stories too. My brothers and sisters used to steal them and, erase my name and put their names on, turn them in their English classes, like, wait a minute. But yeah, I mean, even very young as a kid, I was writing.
What is it about poetry that attracts you?
Wow. I was thinking of that, and it's first of all language, of course, and what you can do with language, and how you can I don't know, I'm like always asking something from it. Like I want to have this moment in time forever, and I know because it changes, the minute it's down on the paper, but there's something about that keeps me centered and gives me back all those things, my sister, whatever. I can just write poems and have it.
You taught for many years at LA High, I believe, on Olympic.
Yeah, right.
And when you were teaching, how did that affect your writing? Were you able to channel your creativity also into your own writing, or would the teaching take up a lot of that energy?
Well, yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, teaching did take up a lot of it, but I think I wrote more because, you have so little time. It's like I would come home from work. I said, okay, I have 1 hour. I can walk the dogs, write poetry, or grade papers. And very often poetry won. And then I started saying, okay, I know what, I'll get up an hour early And that was seriously early. And that's why I wrote that first book, because I know I can't give it up no matter what.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay.
Did you want to say anything more about that?
No, I was done.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you both for bringing us into your worlds. It really is a pleasure to see what you have experienced in and what you see in art and bringing them to life. And you really, both of you have lifted up my life today. And Jennifer, I want to thank her. She's the one who puts all these shows together. We've done over a year. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Sandra, and thank you, Kathleen. And here's Jennifer Clymer to wrap it all up.
I'm always grateful for this hour. We do meditation classes as, you know, part of the day, just to give people an opportunity to reground themselves and center. But for me, this hour does that. It taps back into expression and language in a way that's accessible to everybody. And I really appreciate your time and your artistry. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to meet all of you. And thank you, Harry.